Ladies and gentlemen, this is Nate Crespo, your host for today and forever, and welcome back to another episode of the Lawyers in the Making podcast, where it is my job to focus on the unique journeys to the law and law school of professionals in the legal field and law students. Let's talk about what we're doing today, because today we have another spectacular guest. She's a Florida Gulf Coast University graduate and currently works as a fractional CFO at Firmly Profits. She's held past positions as a CFO at Parve and Cavanago. Always struggle with the names. This one's even tougher. And as a paralegal at Delutri Law Group. Excited to have her on the podcast today, Mrs. Leah Miller. Welcome to the podcast. How are we doing today? Before going any further, I'd like to say a quick word about the sponsor of this podcast, Rhetoric. Back in episode 25, I had the privilege of having the CEO, Luke Yingling, on the podcast. And ever since that episode, fell in love with the product. Rhetoric takes user briefs and motions and compares them against the text of opinions written by judges to identify ways to tailor their arguments to better persuade the judges handling their cases. Rhetoric's focus on persuasion and helps users find new ways to improve their odds of success through more persuasive arguments. Know more, win more. I was able to see a demo of the product, and its cutting-edge technology and fascinating features make for a product I am proud to sponsor, and further shows the new digital era the field of law has been entering thus far on my journey doing this podcast. If you decide to book a demo, let them know Nate sent you. Be sure to check them out in the show notes below or at userhetoric.com. One word, userhetoric.com. Now, back to the show.
A couple years and happened to get a job at a law firm because I needed a job, and a family friend was a office manager. And the first day I worked in the law firm, I saw the word interrogatory and I was like, what is that? And now it's, a normal part of my speech. And so I worked at that law firm and I realized, like, this is what I want to do. I want to work in the legal field. So I changed my major to paralegal studies. And I worked there for a little bit, worked at a couple other law firms, and I graduated with my associates in paralegal studies back in 2011. And my goal at the time was I wanted to manage a law firm one day. So I figured, like, when I was old and in my 40s, which isn't old now because I'm close to that, but when I was 24, 25, that was my thought process. And so I wanted to start working at a personal injury firm. And so that's how I got in at Parve and it was Parve and Frankel back then. And I started as the litigation paralegal there. And I knew I wanted to manage a law firm one day, and our office manager left, and I looked at my boss, and I was 27 at the time. I was almost done with my bachelor's in supervision and management. And I looked at my boss and I said, I can manage your law firm. And he said, okay, let's do it. And so our accountant came in and gave me a crash course on QuickBooks, showed me how to run payroll. I was still the litigation paralegal and I was the office manager. So at 27, I had reached my career goal. And so over time, that obviously changed. I'm a person that's very driven. I went back to school and got my MBA from Florida Gulf Coast University. At the time, didn't think I was going to do anything but work at the law firm, help grow the firm. But I wanted my MBA just to learn a little bit more. And so my position at that firm evolved to CFO, firm administrator, pretty much ran everything. It was a personal injury law firm. And so fast forward several years, I had 3 kids, was super happy in my position, and kind of started changing in COVID. The whole, like, we got to work from home for a while, and that was kind of nice. And I was like, oh, this was nice. And then in September 2022, our area, I'm in Florida, was hit by a hurricane, and our office flooded. So we had 2 feet of water in the office. Was not very exciting time. And so we worked from home from September until January, which was really nice because, again, I have 3 kids. And so, they're getting to the age they have activities, all of that. And in January 2023, we moved into a new office that we purchased, and my commute ended up being about an hour long, which was terrible when you have 3 kids. So during that time, I had started doing some financial consulting and bookkeeping. And I realized that, like, maybe there is something else out there. And so in May 2023, I actually ended up quitting my job as the firm administrator CFO of Carve and Cavanago, and went full time with my company that was L&M Financial Services. I just rebranded to Firmly Profits. And we do bookkeeping and fractional CFO services for primarily law firms. And we have some like law firm adjacent companies. And now I have 2 employees, and I'm doing this full time and continuing to see it grow. So that's like the short version of how I went from paralegal to owning my own financial consulting company.
Well, I love to hear all of that. It's an amazing journey. I sound like a broken record here because I say this every single podcast, but it's a unique journey because, as we say all the time, there's no straight path to the law school. There's only your unique journey, and you exemplify that unique journey that we'd love to talk about on here. But let's go all the way. Now, first, I don't want to go. Well, I guess we're going all the way back. Since you did see the word interrogatory, I have to ask. I have no idea what that is. Can you explain what that is?
An interrogatory is in litigation, written questions. So a plaintiff sends the defendant interrogatories, and the defendant sends the plaintiff, and it's just asking written questions that you answer. Like you have to sign them in front of a notary, so it's, official. So that's what that is.
So what?
Super, super simple for a big word.
So what was the inclination towards that word when you saw that word and like your mind was blown? What was that mind-blowing moment like?
I just didn't know what it meant. And I think it's not even that word specifically. It's just the legal field is so different. I hated writing in college, like essays, all of that. And I love legal writing because it's completely different. It's not the same thing at all. So I think the whole interrogatory story, that is just kind of symbolic for the legal field and how unique it is and how much like I loved it from day one. Even though law school was on the table at one time, but quickly I knew that that wasn't my goal. I just knew that there was some other way that I was going to be in the legal field long term.
So, in terms of not deciding to go to law school and deciding to go this different route, go for paralegal studies and decide to become an office manager, decide to become a CFO, what was that moment like when you're like, when did you find out that law school wasn't for you, that this isn't a path I want to go down?
I think it was more of a time thing, and I had gotten married and wanted to have kids, which I know you can do in law school. I have some amazing lawyer friends who have done it all. But it just wasn't what my husband and I wanted to do for like our lifestyle and what we saw. And so, maybe because it took me a while to graduate with my bachelor's degree, like 10 years, because I just didn't know what I was doing, and I was, did all kinds of stuff. So maybe if I'd done it right out of college, it would have been like right, when I went to college the first time. But it was a path that I needed to take, and I'm really happy with that path. Now I joke all the time. I'm like, no, I work with lawyers all the time. I don't want to be one. So I knew for me, my personality, that wasn't what I wanted to do. I think if I had gone to law school, I probably would have been more of that CEO lawyer who just wanted to like run a business, not practice law. Because I like the business part of it. I like the law part of it as well, but that's definitely not my priority.
So, what's funny about, well, I wouldn't, I guess I'll say funny, but what's funny about it is you think about law, so you think about lawyers, you think about the law itself and big bright lights. If you want to get into the law, big bright lights in front of you, law school. You got to go to law school. But no one ever thinks about the paralegal route because it's a little subset. There's not a lot, it takes a while if you want to become like the full paralegal. It doesn't take like 8 or 10 years or something that you got to constantly be doing it, working in that experience in order to get some sort of like, I guess, no, what would be the word for that? I'm not the expert. You would be the expert. So could you explain that, sort of becoming that
So
paralegal?
I love the paralegal profession so much that I'm actually teach paralegal classes at the local community college that I got my associates from, because I'm so passionate about the profession growing, and I think it's so exciting to see where it's going. It does take some time, and I tell people that all the time. So they'll ask me like, So when we graduate, we'll make $75,000 a year because that's what some paralegals make. I'm like, no, no. So it does take, and I tell people all the time, even if you're in school to be a paralegal, get that receptionist job now. So I loved hiring a receptionist and training them up to be my paralegals when I worked at the law firm, because every law firm does things differently, and so it's just such a good way to get your feet in the like your foot in the door. So if you want to pursue that, and I think even if you want to go to law school eventually, get a job in a law firm, because it's experience that you'll have forever. So I always tell people, you're going to have to start from the bottom. You're not going to graduate from paralegal school and immediately get hired, as a litigation paralegal making, a lot of money. But once you do the time and you're in there and you learn it, there are so many opportunities now, especially since COVID, which just changed the landscape of law firms completely. There are so many virtual firms now that high level paralegals can work virtually either as a freelance or for a firm virtually. And I mean, there's paralegals making well over six figures a year because they're able to, be in all the different markets. And so I even said recently I was at like roundtable for local paralegals and we were talking about pay and all of that. And I said, look, if the lawyers that are local don't want to pay the premium dollar for their paralegals, those paralegals now have options and they're going to go elsewhere. So as a paralegal, if you put in the time and you get the experience, I used to tell myself when I first got my job at the personal injury firm, I was like, I just need 5 years because everybody always like 5 years experience, 5 years experience. So like if you can get those years under your belt, even if you're starting at the bottom as scheduling or whatever it may be, get that experience now because it will pay off in the future.
So what I'm so interested in, what I want to inquire into here is, was there a specific moment or a specific experience where like the sort of route or the path going down the paralegal route or path, like was there a specific moment or experience you had where you first discovered it? Because I think a lot of people are not cognizant of the whole paralegal thing. Like I said, in bright lights, law school, everyone needs to go to law school. So, what was that sort of moment or experience you had where you're like, oh, this is interesting. This is something I'd like to pursue?
Just when I first started working that first law firm and just started learning about it, and it was a litigation firm, which is a little bit more exciting than, if you're just doing something transactional. So people may not have like the as like excitement. But I was like, wow, I really kind of like this. Before that, I was thinking of wanting to do like nursing or teaching, or I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I believe in the law. I believe, I believe in like our justice system. It's flawed in some ways, but I do believe in it. And so just when I started working in the firm, I was like, yeah, I really like this. Like the day to day, I like it. I like, and there are exciting parts and all of that. So it was, and I knew I didn't really want to put in the time for law school. And so I was like, this is what I can do. And still like, I mean, you can have a really good career as a paralegal.
So, your first experience, you were at Dulutri Law Group, you were a paralegal there. But as you said, it's very important, get your foot in the door, start as a receptionist, start on scheduling, whatever it may be. And so, can you kind of talk about your getting your foot in the door, the way that you got your foot in the door, and how you worked your way up to become that litigation paralegal?
So I was actually at another firm before that when I started as just a receptionist legal assistant. And that was a firm that somebody I knew worked at. And so she helped me get that job. She was like, hey, we're hiring. And I mean, they were paying more than I'd been making at Publix before that, and I needed a job. And so I started there. I was only there for about 8 months and then left for some reasons. And then I realized I wanted to get back into a law firm. But I, kept checking. Back then we checked like Craigslist. Now it's Indeed. And so like I kept checking and like there really wasn't anything to like no jobs. And so what I did, and this was back in 2010. So I mean it wasn't that long ago, but it was pretty long ago. I pulled out like the fax machine my dad had And I literally went on the Florida bar website and started writing down fax numbers for like every attorney in my area. And I wrote a cover letter and a resume. And I sat there and I faxed that to, I don't know, probably 50 to 100 fax numbers. Now you wouldn't do that via fax. There'd be other ways to do it, like email. But that's what I did. And so that's when I got the call from I worked for another firm for like 2 months. And when I was there, and it was family law, I didn't love it. When I was there, I got the call from Dulutree and they're like, "Hey, do you want to come in for an interview? We got your fax." And so that was bankruptcy. And I worked in bankruptcy at Dulutree for 2.5, 3 years. And it was honestly probably the best thing for a 25-year-old to do, like learning about budgeting and bankruptcy and all of that. But I knew I didn't want to do that long term. And so I was in school at the time, and I asked one of my professors, I was like, "How long is too long in one practice area?" And she was like, 2, 3 years. Like eventually you want to find the other practice area you want to do, because you're going to become an expert in whatever area you're in the longest. And so you don't want to stay in it too long. So it's like, all right, I need to like get in something else. So I started applying for jobs I knew I wanted to do personal injury or criminal. And so I started applying for jobs, and I got a job offer for a firm. They did personal injury, but it was for a Social Security paralegal job. So that's when I gave my notice at Dulutree, and I was going to do that. And a week before I was supposed to start the new job, a girl I was in school with the year before, she texted me. She said, "Hey, are you looking for a job?" And I was like, "I don't know, maybe." And it was the paralegal job at Parve and Frankel. And the Parve and Frankel job was actually a little bit less money, but it was personal injury, and that's what I wanted to do. And so, had discussions with my husband, like, what should I do? He wanted me to do the other one because like they were like, it was on paper probably the better job. And I was like, "Nope, I just know that I need to like do this." And so took a leap of faith and took the Parve Frankel job, which was the best decision I ever made, because Alan Parve, who hired me, he was the one that took the chance on me and said, "Yes, you can be my office manager," after I'd only been there for like 2 years. And so, yeah, that's kind of like the path I took to where I was with that, from like starting at the bottom and working my way up to litigation paralegal. And I think the biggest thing with that is just saying like, yes, I can do it. Whatever was thrown at me, I was like, "Yeah, I'll learn more. Yeah, I'll do more." And so you have to be willing to do that, especially in a law office. You have to be willing to take initiative and take charge to do what you want to do.
Yeah, I love that word initiative. It's one of my favorite words ever, because I think it's just so important. Such a powerful thing to say. When you just do things, when people ask you to do something, you come back and you do it with your full force, people love it because they'll give you more things. They'll keep coming back. Because
Mhm.
if you're a great well, if you make great water, they're just gonna keep coming, keep coming. So I love to hear that. And
Yes.
I would be remiss, because I always do this every episode, and I can't believe I forgot. I was gonna write it down, forgot to write it down, but I have to congratulate you on your beautiful family. You have a husband, you
Oh,
have three
thank you.
kids. A huge congratulations. I would love a nice big family myself one day. Just gotta wait a little longer. But when you got to that job, you were at Harvey and Canava. I can
Have
never.
an ego.
Cabernet. I don't know why I can't say it. I was saying it fine beforehand. Now I can't do it. But when you were there, you were working your way up. You were taking that initiative. And what sort of tips would you have for people when they're starting out in a new position, just like you said, to take that initiative, but just some other things that you did to ensure that you were being as valuable as you possibly could to your company, which allowed you to then become the office manager. So can you kind of give us that sort of path, that trajectory that landed you as the office manager and then eventually the CFO?
So early on, there were a lot of processes that I helped, and another girl that worked there helped um put together, fix, things like that. And so, I mean, you can't go in and just start demanding that the law firm change their processes, especially if they're set up really well. But if you have ideas, be like open and willing to share those ideas with the cat. And I will say, you want to work for somebody that is also open to listening to your ideas. And so, there are firms where you don't have a voice. And I think it's really cool when you are able to get into a firm where they respect your opinion. And so, coming to them with ideas to make things more efficient. It's not even like mind-blowing things that I came up with. It was just like, hey, notice this process, it takes a little bit of time here. What if we do it this way? Would you be willing to let me do that? Also constantly just learning, like just, like I would always stand and talk to the attorneys about cases and ask them questions because I wanted to know the why behind everything. And I think that's so important. I think that's what sets apart paralegals from like really, really great paralegals is they understand the why things are done in the firm. And so instead of just doing the things that you're taught the way that you're taught to do them, understand why you're doing them. And that really helps you like get far in the legal field.
I love that so much because something, I prepare for these podcasts and something I had on one of my bullet points, it literally just says three words, understanding the why. And it was something that I found on your LinkedIn profile you talk about a lot. And I want to dive into that a little more. So how important and why, which is funny, why is it important to understand the why and how valuable is that to someone just personally as an individual?
So my biggest thing, and this is what you've seen on LinkedIn, and so whether it be with working in a law firm as a paralegal or talking about your law firm finances, which is what I talk about the most now, or just like everything in life, I am the kind of person that asks why. I want to know why something is done a certain way. And what that allows you, and the way that I teach people is I teach them the why so that they can do it more in the future. It's kind of like, giving somebody fish or teaching them to fish. Like you want to learn or you want to teach why things happen so that whoever's looking at it in the future can think about it and make their own decisions about like whatever it is. And so in a paralegal sense in a law firm, why do we do a certain thing with a case? If you understand it for this case, then the next time you'll be able to go to the attorney and say, hey, I know that this is why we do this. Should we do it? Like, should I do this next? Instead of waiting for the attorney to have to say, hey, you need to go do this next. And that helps elevate you and makes you more valuable in the firm. From a financial standpoint, and what I talk to a lot of people about, understanding the why behind what you do with your finances. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, I don't care what you do. I just want you to make intentional decisions about what you're doing. So you can spend money on whatever you want, but I'm going to tell you, like, if you make this decision, this is what might happen. And if you understand that and still make that intentional decision, then that's fine. And I think that that's how it can be anyway in life, whatever you do.
Yeah, I think that's such a great insight, just for the pure fact that you're keeping yourself consciously curious, intently curious, but it's not just about knowing things. It's great to know things, but you really understand them. You can apply them to pretty much anywhere. Just like you said, it makes you much more valuable. You can sort of take that next step. If someone's asked you to do something and you're like, oh, I could also do this, then you did that. They come back to you like, oh, I also did this. And they're like, oh, wow, look at that. I didn't even have to tell you. It's because you understood what I said. And I think that's such a great thing. I think I'm always asking why my whole entire life. My parents didn't exactly love it so much because, I get in trouble. Why am I in trouble? These are all the reasons why I shouldn't be in trouble. But something you said beforehand that you loved the day-to-day work that you did every single day, which I love to hear. But I want to ask as a CFO at, I'm going to try to say it,
Harvey
Harvey
Cavanago.
Cabanago. Look at that. I'm doing better and better as the podcast goes on. But what did the day-to-day look like as a CFO working for them?
So I had a lot of roles. I was firm admin and CFO. So I essentially was, you know, managing the paralegals and just the workload, making sure, whoever had different parts of the cases that it was getting done. From a financial standpoint, I did all of the paying bills, doing payroll, looking at the financials, figuring out, what a budget looks like, things like that. Um, so just a lot of different stuff day to day, which is kind of what I'm doing now, but on a smaller level for a lot of different firms. But yeah, I was really involved in the day to day just running of the firm and, talking to clients if there were any issues. I was like, they would talk to me and then we'd pass it off to the attorney. So a lot of times I was that person in between like the paralegals and the attorney to kind of like troubleshoot, um, fix problems, things like that. And then I still did litigation paralegal work up until the end. So the day to day I didn't do a whole lot of, but if we were going to trial or there was anything more involved, I would step in and do that. So I could essentially work a case from beginning to end. And I just jumped in whenever. And that's kind of what made me want to be an office manager in my early 20s was I saw a need for an office manager who could step into any position and help in any way. And so I wanted to be that office manager that could help everybody. So if somebody was out, I knew how to work a case from top to bottom. I knew how it was all done. There were people who did parts of it better than me, but I wanted to be that office manager that could help everybody when they needed it.
So that what I have to ask from that, we're trying to understand the why. Why did you want to pursue something like that? Why did you feel so inclined that I want to be the office manager, be able to be the jack of all trades and step in wherever I need to?
Because I had bad examples in my life of those.
I mean, listen, that's a sufficient answer. It's completely fine. And if it's the truth, it's the truth. And I love to hear the truth. But we now go towards the end of your time there. You move offices, hour commute, not great. That, three kids, a lot going on at home. So, and a lot to handle, a lot on your plate, and now you got to drive an hour. I know very well. My father has to drive an hour all the way to work. He's been doing it the whole his whole entire life here with me on this earth. So I know it all too well. But what went into taking that leap of faith to go on your own, hang your own shingle, and what was sort of that feeling that day, or maybe that experience you had where you're like, something's got to change. I gotta get out of here and I gotta do my own thing.
So it was a really scary thing. So I can relate, and I feel like I can relate to a lot of my clients now, especially the lawyers who are just starting their firms. Um, because some of us are even in the same like revenue category and like what I provide a service business isn't that far off from a law firm. So I can relate a lot. So the build up to it was I had started doing side work. And I saw a need for financial consulting for attorneys. Um, and so I was like, okay, maybe we can do this, on the side. Maybe in a couple years, I'll talk about like reducing my hours at the firm because of the drive and all of that. And so I had built up a couple of clients and that was going really well. And I actually had a friend, or have a friend, she's my really good friend, who has a landscape company and they needed some business help, like business process help and financial processes and all of that. And so she had been asking me for months to like, hey, you can come work for us. And I was like, no, I'm gonna stick with the business that's been in business for a long time. Like I am a very like comfortable, conservative with money kind of person. Again, I have 3 kids. We have a house. Like it was scary. Um, and then it just like over a couple months of talking, I'm like, I somewhere in my gut, I feel like this is the thing to do. So of course I ran all the numbers, like talked to my husband, like worst case scenario, I could go get a job as a paralegal. I had the backup plans to the backup plans, like I had it all planned out. And in May or late April 2023, she was like, look, we're gonna hire somebody else or we're gonna hire you. Do you want to do it or not? And so she was able to pay me enough that it made sense, like with my business. And so I was working pretty much full time for her from May to October. And then I was on my own 100% in October. I'd gotten them all set up. And they continued to be a bookkeeping client, but I wasn't like making the bulk of my, income from them anymore. And I had like gone off on my own. So once I left my job, it was like, all right, now I got to build this because, got to make it work. And so that's when I really hit like LinkedIn hard and really started networking, getting on podcasts, doing all those things. And it was that like, I got to make this work. So I've got to do the work.
Of course, the work was waiting for you, and you just simply had to do it. Now, I have a question because you said something very interesting that caught my ear, and you said that you identified that there was some sort of need in the market for this sort of financial consulting. How did you identify through maybe experiences or moments you had at work that you realized there is a need in this market and I should go get it?
So I started doing the books for a couple of lawyers, and I realized that lawyers go to law school and they learn how to practice law, which is probably some of them might debate that also because I don't like know if they even feel like they're ready for that. But they don't learn the business part of it. And the law firm, like, just industry has changed where it is a business, and it needs to be run as a business. And so a lot of lawyers they just don't know the business part of it. And so that's why, they need good bookkeeping. And there are a lot of bookkeepers out there. There's a lot of CPAs out there, but law firms are a little bit different with their trust accounts and just the way that they are, the way that income comes in for some law firms, like contingency fee firms and stuff like that. And so I saw a need for somebody who understood the operational part to also help with the financial part. So I do that through bookkeeping or the fractional CFO services, which are a little more involved.
So from there, I have to ask about what you're doing right now at Firmly Profits, what you do right now. So what does it entail? What does your day-to-day entail? What do you guys do? And what does the future look like?
Awesome. So first start by explaining what a fractional CFO is, because most people are like, what is that? So and that's how I explain it. Your CPA normally does your taxes. So they're worried about your taxes. They're worried about making sure your financial data is in a position to do your taxes. And they're looking at the past. Bookkeepers are also looking at the past. They're categorizing your transactions, putting together your financial statements for your CPA to use for your taxes. A fractional CFO is looking at the future. So we do budgeting, cash flow forecasts, talking about, if we receive a big settlement, how should we distribute that money? Where does it need to go? What does it look like if we bring on debt? How do we grow? Can I hire this new attorney? And things like that. We also look at a lot of, percentage of your revenue that's going towards marketing or percentage of your revenue that's going towards wages. And with that information and using that financial data, you can then make operational decisions. So if your wages are really high and your staff is telling you that they're overworked, there's an issue there because, you should fall into some sort of percentage, especially for a law firm. And so that's a lot of what we look at on the fractional CFO side. And then on the bookkeeping side, we do a lot of trust accounting. So a lot of lawyers have trust accounts that are highly regulated by the state bar associations. If they are not maintained in the right way, you can lose your bar license. And so making sure that those are maintained the right way, the accounting is done the right way. And then I like to take accounting for bookkeeping a little bit past the tax preparation side. So you can do bookkeeping in a way that you can run those reports and make informed financial decisions. So one good way of explaining it is wages. For taxes, you just have to lump everybody's wages together. It's like super simple. To make better financial decisions on, do we need another associate? Is our team performing right? We want to break those wages down in your accounting software so that we can see how much you're paying your associates, how much you're paying your paralegals. And then you can make better financial decisions. So that's a lot of what we're doing at Firmly Profits. And that's why I like focusing on law firms because I can have the conversations with my clients about the operational side as well as like the financial side. So we can put them together because I understand what's happening in a law firm. So, if I see a really high expense for something that is normal for a law firm, somebody who's never done bookkeeping for or financial support for a law firm before may see an increased expense and be like, whoa, you need to cut that. Whereas I'm like, okay, I know this is needed. So we need to talk about like how can we work around this, and things like that.
So I think what's so interesting and something that you said before is that attorneys, lawyers, they go through law school, they learn about the law, but they don't learn about the business. And that is something, it amazes me every time I hear it because it's always a constant theme on this podcast. Attorneys come on here and talk about it. People like you come on here and talk about it. The one accountant I ever had, John Scott, who came on here, he talked about it as well and how crucial it is and how important it is for people to understand that it is a business. I know I've had a lot of attorneys come on here and talk about people making partner. They're always in the books, they're always writing their briefs, they're always doing this stuff. They make partner and then they realize, oh, I have to go get clients, I have to go get referrals, I have to get all this stuff. And they realize at the end of the day, as much as they're lawyers, they're writing briefs, they're giving oral arguments, they're also running a business. And I think that's just so important for people to hear because they'll go through law school and then they'll get hit in the face by business, which is the craziest thing in the world. And it just flies. It very much, obviously, it's not taught in law school. That they're not shouting from the rooftops, but it's like the secret in law is that it's just a business at the end of the day. And I think it's so interesting to find people like you who are sort of putting that message out there and helping lawyers through that, go through the fact that, there is that learning curve that comes in when you finally realize, oh my God, like this is a business at the end of the day. And I think it's just such a wonderful thing. And I just have to ask now from that, what does an ideal attorney client look for you? Like if you had to put on the model attorney client that you would want to work with, what would it look like?
So my biggest thing is attorneys that are growth minded. And not every law firm owner has to be growth minded. You can be a solo attorney and do just fine through your career and be really happy. But I like working with attorneys who are looking for growth. And that's when that increased bookkeeping makes sense and when the financial services or financial fractional CFO services make sense. Because you're going to use that data to help you grow, to spend more money in marketing, to purchase that building, to hire the new employee. And to do all of those things, you need to do more than just look and see if there's cash in the bank. You need to be looking at your financial statements once a month and all of that. So, as far as fractional CFO and bookkeeping goes, most of my monthly fractional CFO clients are getting close to $1 million in revenue a year or over. But I have bookkeeping clients that are just starting out, like literally just earning revenue all the way up to, 10 million and above. So I always encourage people, and that's why I post on LinkedIn all the time, is reach out to me if you're not sure. Because one, I do bookkeeping in a way that you can get the information that my fractional CFO clients get by running reports in QuickBooks. Obviously, you don't get my opinion every month and me talking to you and analyzing it, but I do offer, 30-minute calls with my bookkeeping clients once a month if they want, and we'll pull the reports in QuickBooks and I'll answer questions for them, because I want those firms that are just starting out who haven't hit $1 million a year to be confident in their finances. So I encourage everybody, even if you don't think you're there yet to need that, reach out to me. I'll even I had a conference call a month or two ago with a woman who was starting her own firm, and she literally just wanted to pick my brain on like what to even start with. And she was like, well, do I need to like sign up with you for monthly services yet? And I was like, no, it doesn't make sense. You're not even bringing in revenue. But when you hit this point, that's when you can come to me. But until then, these are the things that I think you should do. So I try to help law firms on all ends of the spectrum, just with different, ways. Obviously, it varies with that.
Law students, are you feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or short on time in law school? Maybe you just want someone to show you a step-by-step framework to master the topics you're learning in your classes. I know the pressure you're under, and I've got the perfect solution for you. My course, The Law School Operating System, is proven to help you conquer law school with confidence and ease.
Created by Lisa Blasser, a former guest on the podcast and founder of the Law School Success Institute, this course breaks down every subject into manageable main topics that you run through a comprehensive study system to thoroughly prepare you for class and final exams. No more feeling like you need to know everything all at once in the beginning.
But that's not all, Nate. The Law School Operating System also teaches you how to schedule your studying and time effectively. For every topic, you'll know which study step you're on and when you'll complete it every week of your semester. No more mad dash cram sessions, more time with your loved ones. And with my system, you'll walk into your exams knowing you've given 100% of yourself, that there's nothing more you could have done to succeed, and there's no better confidence than that.
Lisa breaks it down like this: one class, one list of main topics, and one system to master each topic. With recorded and live sessions for students available on her website and partnerships with law schools nationwide, the Law School Operating System is here to help you thrive from day one to the final exam. Ready to take control of your law school journey and operate at your full potential in law school? Visit www.lisablasser.com today and enroll in the Law School Operating System. Be sure to use code LSOSNATE10 at checkout for 10% off the recorded course. That is code LSOSNATE10 at checkout. Now, back to the show. I find it amazing that the one thing that you look for is having that sort of growth mindset. There was a point in time of me doing this podcast thinking I might as well just change the name of this podcast to the Growth Mindset Podcast, because I'm always just talking about it. Guests come on here, they talk about it. So it's just an important thing. When things are constantly repeated on this podcast, I'm like, okay, that's an important thing that people should probably know. But you got me thinking that you're influencer. I might have to book a consulting call. Fix my spending, Leah, please. I spend way too much money on pizza, and it's becoming an issue, I swear. But Leah,
it is eye-opening when you actually finally look at it and you're like, whoa, maybe I need to pull back a little bit. So
literally funny enough, like I think, what was this, last week or like a week and a half ago, I got Rocket Money because I kept seeing it on my Twitter. I'm like, all right, I'll see what's going on here. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, oh my God. I was like, back to square one. I gotta really figure stuff out. But Leo, we're down to our last 5 questions. The first of the 5 questions is a little, I'll put it in a way that will fit what you do, because it is the tech stack question per se. I'm always asking people about the new legal products, the AI products, the software products. But you, of course, don't work, well, you do work in the legal industry, but you're not in a legal office writing briefs or all that stuff. But what does your tech stack look like? And what sort of new technologies are you using, testing out, sort of fiddling with to see if they work for you?
So, number one, accounting software for everybody from day one. You can use an Excel spreadsheet from day one, but as soon as you're making just a little bit of money, you need accounting software. So most of my clients are in QuickBooks Online. If you are on QuickBooks Desktop, it is time to get to QuickBooks Online. It makes more sense. Some of my clients are on Xero, which is another accounting software. So that is number one, accounting software. And then I actually just hired an executive assistant who is my favorite person in the world right now because she's getting me so organized. But we use Asana for project management and just tracking like to-do tasks with our clients. And she's getting that organized for me. And I'm really starting to love Slack as just like a instant messaging. I have always been obsessed with my email kind of person. And I am realizing, and a lot of people, like, the new thing now is to get out of email, so have different ways to communicate. And I'm realizing, even though it terrifies me to like give up some email stuff, I'm realizing it makes more sense. My email definitely bogs down my day. So Slack and that's kind of it. I mean, I do everything on Zoom, obviously, video calls because I don't have any, I have like one, two local clients, so most everything's video call. But yeah, I mostly work in QuickBooks Online, and people say it's expensive. It's like $30 a month. So once you start making any revenue at all, it's an expense that's necessary because let me tell you, if it needs to be cleaned up or taken care of later, it costs a lot of money. A lot. So I've seen cleanups in the like 30 to 50, I've seen people post about doing cleanups in like the 30 to $50,000 range. If you don't keep up with your accounting software from day one.
Oh my goodness, great. I gotta get myself a QuickBooks Online. You're scaring me. Oh my goodness. 30 to 50,000. I gotta get my books together. But fourth to last question here, live on the Lawyers in the Making. Leah Miller, what are your book recommendations for people? Doesn't have to be about the law, or it could literally be just your favorite books ever, something you give a gift to someone.
So my favorite business book right now is Buy Back Your Time. I waited way too long to start hiring as my business was growing. And that's a big one for me, Buy Back Your Time. And then I really I like listening to audiobooks and I like listening to like celebrity memoirs. And my favorite one of that is Elton John was such a good one. So that's like my non-business, just fluff book. That was a really good one. But yeah, Buy Back Your Time for a business book is definitely my top choice right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't think I've ever had that one recommended on the podcast. I've never had the Elton John memoir recommended on the podcast. I might have to take a look into that. He's a very popular person on Long Island, not as popular as Billy Joel, but people love him around here. So I'll be sure to get into that. But third to last question here, Leah, what are the sorts of things that you consume, not food, on a daily basis? Either that be through social media, so Twitter, Instagram, um, Facebook, YouTube, Reddit, Substack, any podcasts you listen to that you'd recommend to people, any people on LinkedIn you'd recommend to people. What is crossing the transom of Leah's mind on a daily basis?
So I am big on LinkedIn and I am on there every day, almost posting. So I think just getting out there and connecting with people on LinkedIn is a huge, especially for whether you're in school, going to law school, if you're already a lawyer, or if you are a paralegal. I think LinkedIn is the biggest place to help that. And I actually want to shout out Jacqueline Foster on LinkedIn. She's a huge freelance paralegal coach. So because we talked so much about paralegals, she's a big one to see on LinkedIn.
I'll get her on
But
the
yeah.
podcast. Shout out Jacqueline.
Oh, you did?
No, I'm just saying.
Oh,
I'm doing it now. I'm doing it now.
oh, she's awesome. So I I really like following her. But yeah, LinkedIn I'm on a lot. I listen to just a lot of random stuff. I don't know. I just scroll social media sometimes. I just like learning. So like I'm following a guy on Instagram now who's like growing a 600-pound pumpkin and like he puts sand under it and stuff so like it doesn't get rotten. And like now I'm learning about growing pumpkins and I follow like Facebook groups about chickens. Like I don't have chickens, can't have chickens where I live, but like I can tell you everything about the chickens. So yeah, I just like I consume such random. It's back to that lifelong learning, knowing the why behind everything. I just want to know the why behind everything.
Of course. Listen, I am a lover of those incredibly niche topics. They're my favorite things in the world. And every time I find something new, I have to learn every single thing about it. One example of that, I love wrestling. I love professional wrestling, one of my favorite things in the world. And when I first really started looking into it, there was like at the time, I think there was 35 WrestleManias. I watched every single one in like 2 months because they just need to know everything. And now I could literally tell you from like 1980 to like 2024. I could tell you every single champion. I can tell you everyone who held the belt, why they lost it, how they lost it. I just needed to know. But it's just, I enjoy it. I need to learn it. It's just so much fun learning all those new things, seeing people come back. It's like, oh, I know that guy. But second to last question here. What does an ideal Friday night and Sunday morning look for Leah?
So Friday nights, normally right now we are in our pool. We just had a pool built. We are in the pool all the time. I've been trying to take Fridays off work this summer. And so just swimming and hanging out with my kids and my husband. And then Sunday mornings, my favorite thing to do is go for a run and then go grocery shopping at like 7 a.m. before all the people get to the store. That's my thing on Sunday mornings that I do is I go for a run and then I go grocery shopping.
No, I mean that sounds like peak performance, quite honestly. And I've worked in a grocery store before, so I know that at 7 a.m. there is absolutely no one in there. You got free, and all the stuff is out already. So you got the freshest. But I worked in the produce section, so I know when you first get in that store, they're putting all that new stuff out. Hopefully, they are refilling and putting the old stuff in the front and the new stuff in the back. That's a trick for everyone out there.
Nope.
If you're always looking and you see some new stuff in the front, or you see the old stuff in the front, just start digging. The new stuff's in the back. Listen, you didn't get it from me. Hopefully ShopRite doesn't come after me for giving away their secrets. But final question here, Leah. I do this at the end of every single episode. What are your words of wisdom for the aspiring law students, the aspiring paralegals, the current law students, the current legal professionals, and pretty much anyone else out there? Because you got a wide range of wisdom here, so let's hear it.
I think the biggest thing is to stay curious, ask why, and just know that, and it's so cliche, anything is possible, but I get people all the time, they're like, how do you even know how to do that? And I'm like, I just figured it out. Or, you'll hear like, you're so lucky because you got this, flexible schedule. And it's like, well, it's not luck, it's a lot of work. So I just feel like you can put in the work. And I learned big time last year when I quit my job that if you have a vision for what you want your life to look like, there are ways. And I remember 5 years ago thinking like, there's just got to be a way, like I can, do what I want to do during the day at work. Like there's just got to be a way. I've always had this vision in my mind, and it took a little bit of time to like figure out the avenue to get there, but I'm there, and it's still a lot of work, but you can just do what you want to do. And like, just because you went to law school or you went to paralegal school or whatever you did doesn't mean you're locked into doing something that you don't love every single day, because I love what I'm doing every single day. And I'm now trying to convince everybody I know, like, if you don't love it, find something else to do.
Oh, Leah, we could have done a whole other podcast and just talking about how important it is to have a vision, but that was beautifully said. As much as even, I don't know how much philosophy you've ever read, but that was so philosophical, so deep. As Friedrich Nietzsche says, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Kelly Clarkson didn't come up with that. I'm so sorry, everyone. But that is the podcast. So, Leah, thank you so much for coming on here, spreading your wisdom, spreading your experiences, and for everyone out there listening, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check us out, lawyersinthemaking.substack.com. That is lawyersinthemaking, one word, substack.com. And I will see you all in the next one.